My cheating ex and her coworker humiliated me in court for being a craftsman, but when the judge revealed what I was really hiding, everything changed. My business wasn't just a workshop, it was a thriving enterprise I'd built in secret. They thought I was just a blue-collar nobody. Turns out, I owned the whole company, and their greed exposed their own failure. You never think it's gonna go sideways when it starts out all dreamy and ideal. But looking back, yeah, the warning signs were there from day one. My name's Dale. I'm 41 years old, and I live just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. I restore antique furniture for a living, real craftsmanship, not some Etsy spray paint hobby. People pay good money for what I do, but I guess that didn't count for much to Claudia. I met her 7 years ago at a gallery exhibit downtown. I was delivering a restored Art Deco sideboard, a gorgeous walnut piece with brass inlays, when she approached me. Black blazer, sharp heels, eyes like ice chips. She asked me what kind of finish I'd used, what era it was from, and where I sourced the veneer. I thought, wow, someone who actually gets it. Or at least wants to. We started dating a couple weeks later. Claudia worked in corporate fashion, senior VP of something at some big conglomerate. One of those brands where the tags cost more than the clothes. She was always polished, always moving fast, like she had somewhere better to be. But with me, back then, she slowed down. Or so I thought. She came to my shop a few times that first year, even asked about the different woods, how to tell red oak from white, how French polish worked. I'd catch her watching me as I scraped years of paint off a maple dresser, eyes full of what I thought was admiration. It felt like something solid. Real. So when we got married after a year and a half, I figured I'd hit the jackpot. Sure, we were different. Her in designer suits and business class flights, me in flannel shirts and sawdust-covered jeans, but we made it work. For a while. The cracks started small. She'd bring me to events with her coworkers and introduce me as Dale. He does. Custom interiors. Like she couldn't just say I restore furniture. Like that wasn't classy enough. I remember this one party in Charlotte, her colleague's penthouse thing. Everyone there was talking mergers and market expansion. I tried to make conversation, mentioned how restoring 100-year-old furniture is a kind of rescue work, preserving stories. A woman looked at me and said, "Oh, like upcycling?" And Claudia laughed. I just stood there feeling about 2 feet tall. At home, it got more subtle. She started asking if I'd ever thought about scaling my business. Said maybe I should move out of the garage and into something more professional. Offered to introduce me to a branding consultant. I told her I liked things the way they were, hands-on, steady. She smiled and said, of course, but the way she said it, like I was the one who didn't get it. I brushed it off at first. I figured she was just trying to help. But then one night, after some wine, she looked at my calloused hands and said, "It's cute, you know. Like, very salt of the earth." I laughed, but deep down, that didn't feel like a compliment. Felt more like a pat on the head. My sister Trish didn't like her from the jump. "She's playing dress up with you," she said once. "You're a project to her, not a partner." I got defensive. Told Trish to back off, that Claudia was different. But now, I think she saw what I didn't. See, Claudia liked the idea of me. The artisan boyfriend, the grounded one who could build her a custom wine rack from reclaimed wood. But marriage? Real partnership? That required respect. And Claudia, she didn't respect me. Not really. Over time, I stopped telling her about the commissions I was proud of. Like the time I rebuilt a Chippendale chest from nothing but splinters. She didn't ask, so I didn't share. The distance got quiet, like insulation. Sometimes I'd watch her on Zoom calls with her team, voice crisp, sentences sharp. Then she'd come into the kitchen, glance at my hands full of lacquer, and mutter something about me leaving shop mess on the counter. I tried to meet her halfway. Bought slacks for her company dinners. Read up on fashion so I wouldn't sound clueless. But none of it mattered. Because what she really wanted, what I think she always wanted, was someone she could eventually mold. Sharpen. Elevate. Not someone who loved his work covered in dust. I used to think we were just growing apart. But the truth? She never really stood next to me to begin with. She stood above me, smiling, polite, but always above. That realization didn't come all at once. It was slow, like watching veneer peel away over time, revealing cheap plywood underneath. I kept hoping I'd find solid oak there. But some pieces were never built to last. And Claudia? She wasn't built for me. She just didn't know it yet. Or maybe she did. And maybe that was the worst part. Claudia got promoted about 18 months into the marriage. Senior executive director, or maybe it was vice president of global something. She had a knack for collecting titles the way some people collect stamps. I congratulated her, took her out to dinner, even bought her a silver pin engraved with her initials. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Now you can say you're married to someone powerful." At first, I laughed, thought it was a joke. But looking back, I don't think it was. After that, Claudia was barely home. She was flying to LA for week-long strategy sessions, then to Milan for something fashion adjacent. The fridge was always full of half-eaten takeout when she did come back. Thai, sushi, something with truffle oil. Our conversations turned into scheduled briefings. I'll be in late Wednesday, and Friday I've got that dinner with the investors. Don't wait up. The only name I started hearing regularly was Vincent. Vincent's spearheading the Paris launch. Vincent thinks we should pivot our branding. Vincent booked that dinner at Per Se. We'll be going over the Q4 numbers. I tried not to read into it. I wanted to believe he was just some guy on our team. But even a fool knows when his wife is smiling too much at someone who isn't him. Meanwhile, I was spending more time in the workshop, partly because I had projects lined up, but mostly because it was the one place I still felt useful. I'd roll up the garage door, let the light in, and just work. But I wasn't satisfied with just staying afloat. Something inside me was itching to grow, to prove, maybe to her, maybe just to myself, that I wasn't stuck. So I started taking small business courses online. Nights and weekends, after sanding and sealing, I'd sit at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and watch lectures about inventory systems, bookkeeping, customer acquisition. I didn't tell Claudia. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid she'd laugh. Or worse, offer to coach me. She noticed the books eventually. One night she picked up a copy of Marketing Basics for Artisan Businesses, flipped through it like it was a gossip rag, and said, "Planning a little Etsy empire?" I shrugged and told her I was just exploring ideas. She smiled thinly. "Just don't quit your day job, babe." I didn't respond. Just turned back to my laptop and kept watching. Around that time, I remember she started making these jokes. Little things, under her breath, like, "I hope you're not dragging sawdust into the Tesla," or "Can you change before we go out? That shirt smells like turpentine." Once, in front of her colleagues at a wine tasting, she said, "Dale has this adorable little workshop. It's like a Pinterest board come to life." They all laughed. I smiled. And then I excused myself to the restroom, stood in front of the mirror, and wondered what the hell I was doing there. The last straw, at least the one that really stuck with me, was the neighborhood social mixer. Claudia had insisted we go. "It's good to be visible in the community," she said. So I threw on a clean button-down, brushed the dust off my boots, and walked into a backyard full of guys in golf polos and women in flowy dresses. Claudia floated between groups like a politician. When she finally introduced me, she said, "This is my husband, Dale. He works in custom interiors." I blinked. Custom interiors? The guy she was talking to nodded politely. "Oh, cool. Like staging?" "No," I said, before I could stop myself. "I restore antique furniture. I own a shop on Chestnut. Been doing it about 15 years. He gave me a half smile, the kind people give when they're not sure if you're joking. Claudia just sipped her wine and turned the conversation back to Fashion Week. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed while she took off her earrings. I asked her why she introduced me like that. She didn't even look up. Because people understand the term better. Nobody wants to hear about your varnish techniques over hummus and cocktails. It wasn't just what she said. It was the way she said it, like my work was some embarrassing secret. Like I was the dusty old chair in the back room of her life. I stopped bringing my projects into the house after that. I stayed quiet during her stories about Vincent and quarterly growth. And every night I kept logging into those business classes, taking notes, learning, preparing. Because something inside me had started to shift. I didn't just want Claudia to respect what I did. I wanted to make sure that even if she never did, I'd still have something she couldn't laugh away. Something of my own, built with my hands, and protected with both of them. I don't know exactly when the suspicion started. It wasn't one big thing, more like a slow trickle. A gut feeling I kept brushing off until it pooled into something I couldn't ignore. It started with the receipts. I found one in the laundry basket, a crumpled bill from a wine bar in Charleston. 2 entrees, for drinks, valet service. I hadn't been to Charleston in over a year, and Claudia definitely wasn't with me. When I asked her about it, she laughed like I was the one being weird. "Oh, that? Vincent and I had a client dinner down there. Company card got declined, so I used ours and had them reimburse me. It's already sorted." She said it so easily, so practiced, that I almost believed her. But when I checked the credit card statement, there was no deposit from her company. Just her money, gone. Then there were the art galleries. Claudia never gave a damn about art before, but suddenly she was into emerging painters and texture-forward pieces. I found tickets to an exclusive gallery showing tucked in the side pocket of her purse, not even hidden, just buried. Date night for 2. She hadn't mentioned it. When I asked, she said it was boring and not worth talking about. No follow-up, no photos, no anything. One night, after she passed out on the couch with her laptop open, I noticed something. A hotel confirmation in her inbox, a suite in Atlanta for the same weekend she said she was attending a leadership summit. Reservation made under Vincent M., with Claudia listed as additional guest. I just stared at it. That sick feeling rolled through my stomach, slow and ugly. I didn't even know what to do with it. So I did nothing. Not yet. Instead, I started gathering. Quietly. Methodically. I printed the hotel confirmations, took screenshots of the receipts, cross-checked her calendar with charges on our joint accounts. She said she was in New York for Fashion Week. I found a room charge at the Ritz in D.C. She told me she had a late dinner with the board. The receipt showed a table for two at a rooftop bistro, champagne and oysters for $290. And then there was the text. I wasn't snooping. Not really. Her phone lit up while she was in the shower. Just a glimpse, but it was enough. V, got us the corner table tonight. We're that black thing I like. Us. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay there beside her, staring at the ceiling while she breathed deep and even. I thought about all the hours I'd spent sanding wood down to its bones, rebuilding what someone else threw away, making it whole again. And here I was, married to someone who didn't care about building anything with me at all. The next day, I stopped by her office building downtown. I told the front desk I was dropping off her charger. The receptionist looked confused. Oh, she's not in today, she said. She's working remote this week. Out of state, I think. I nodded, pretended to be surprised, then went back to the car and just sat there for a while, gripping the wheel, trying to figure out what hurt more, the lie or how easily she told it. Later that week, a buddy of mine, Ryan, who used to work in Claudia's office before transferring out, asked if I wanted to grab a beer. We hadn't seen each other in months. During the second round, he asked how things were going with Claudia. I said, busy as usual. He nodded, then said something I'll never forget. Didn't realize you guys were still together, honestly. Thought she and Vincent were, official now. The glass froze halfway to my lips. What? He blinked, confused. I mean, maybe I heard wrong, but everyone over there kind of assumed she moved in with him. She talks about his place all the time. Says she loves the way he decorated the loft. I put the beer down. Hard. She's still married to me, I said. Ryan's eyes went wide. Man, I didn't know. I drove home that night in silence. No music. Just the sound of my own breathing and the tires on the road. When I got back, Claudia was already asleep, curled up like nothing in the world was wrong. Like she hadn't just casually erased me from her life while still living in the house I built. The house I wired and painted and finished with my own hands. I stood there for a while, staring at her. Then I turned and walked into the office. I opened a new folder on my computer. Named it, Claudia, Evidence. It felt dramatic at first. But then I remembered the look on Ryan's face. The hotel confirmations. The gallery tickets. The receipts with Vincent's name. Her voice, light and airy, brushing off every lie like it didn't matter. This wasn't heartbreak. This was strategy. She was playing a long game. And now, so was I. It was a Thursday. I remember because I'd just finished staining a cherrywood headboard and was about to call it a night when my phone buzzed. Doug, neighbor. Hey man, just thought you should know, Claudia just pulled in with some guy. Black Audi. They're going inside. I stared at the message for a long minute. Then I wiped my hands, put the rag down, and walked to the sink. I washed the stain off slowly, carefully, not because I needed to, but because I didn't want to go in angry. I needed my mind clear. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the Audi was still parked there. Sleek. New. One of those models that screams status without needing to say it. I stepped out of the truck. Didn't slam the door. Just walked up the porch and opened the front door with my key. They were in the living room, barefoot, drinking wine. Claudia was laughing at something Vincent said, leaning into him like this was their house. When they saw me, her face froze. Vincent stood up quickly, like I was the damn doorman who'd walked in uninvited. Dale, she said, setting her glass down too fast. You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow. I looked around the room, the throw pillows I picked out, the coffee table I built, the bookshelf she never once complimented but filled with design magazines. And there they were, acting like they owned it. No, I said. You weren't supposed to be here. Either of you. Vincent puffed up like he was ready to say something heroic. Hey man, let's keep this civiled. I laughed. Actually laughed. You walk into another man's house, with his wife, drinking his wine, and you want civil? Claudia stood now. Okay, let's not escalate it. No, I cut her off. Don't start playing peacemaker now. You escalated this the second you brought him through my front door. You don't own me, she snapped. I don't, I said calmly. But I do own this house. And you're about to find out what that means. Her eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I pulled the envelope out of my jacket and tossed it onto the table. Notice to vacate. You've got 72 hours. Vincent scoffed. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm dead serious, I said, stepping toward him. You're not on the deed. She signed off when I refinanced. You've been living here rent-free. Both of you. But that ends now. Claudia's mouth hung open. You wouldn't. I met her eyes. You already made your move. I'm just making mine. And then, like it was scripted, headlights flooded the front windows. 2 more cars pulled up. Out stepped her father and brother. I recognized them right away. Suits. Red faces. Storming up the walk like backup had arrived. Claudia rushed to the door before I could move. Dad, he's threatening to throw us out. He's lost it. Her father pushed past her and squared up to me. "You've got 5 seconds to walk out of here and let my daughter be." I didn't flinch. "You've got 5 seconds to back off my property. You son of a..." He reached out, maybe to shove, maybe to grab, but it didn't matter. Because that's when the sirens hit. Right on cue, 2 police cruisers pulled up. Lights flashing. Her brother stepped back like he'd seen a ghost. Claudia's mouth clamped shut. Vincent took a literal step behind the couch. I turned to the officers, calm as a preacher on Sunday. "Evening, gentlemen. That's them. Trespassing. Here's the deed, and here's the paperwork showing they no longer have legal right to be here." One officer glanced at Claudia. "Ma'am, he's filed everything by the book. You're going to need to leave the premises." "This is ridiculous," she shrieked. "You're seriously siding with him?" The younger officer didn't blink. "It's not about sides. It's about documentation. You've got 72 hours to retrieve your belongings. But for tonight, you're leaving." Vincent looked like he wanted to melt through the floor. Claudia turned to me one last time, eyes blazing. "You think this is over? You'll regret this. I'll make sure of it." I nodded slowly. "I'm counting on it." She stormed out, heels pounding the floor. Her father followed, muttering curses. Vincent didn't even say goodbye. I stood there, alone in my own living room, surrounded by the echo of slammed doors and hollow threats. The house felt quiet again. Empty, but not in a bad way. More like peaceful. One of the officers looked at me as he packed up his clipboard. "You handled that like a pro," he said. I just shrugged. "You learn a lot from furniture restoration." He raised an eyebrow. "Sometimes," I added, "you don't realize how rotten something is until you tear off the polish." They left, and I locked the door behind them, the real kind of locked. No more pretending. No more placeholders. Just me, the house I built, and the peace I was finally ready to keep. I'd never set foot in a courtroom before. Not as a defendant, not as a plaintiff, not even for jury duty. But the moment I walked in and saw Claudia sitting at that long mahogany table, flanked by 2 slick-suited attorneys and not even pretending to look remorseful, I knew exactly where I stood. This wasn't a divorce. It was a war. She glanced back at me just once, a flicker of a smirk on her lips, like she already knew the outcome. Like the eviction, the police, the humiliation, none of it touched her. She was already rewriting the narrative. And from the way her lawyers launched into opening statements, I knew what that narrative was. Claudia was the ambitious executive who married beneath her class, a woman who tried her best to elevate her spouse, only to be dragged down by his lack of vision. According to her attorney, I'd refused all offers of self-betterment, choosing to remain stagnant while Claudia pursued upward mobility. They even called me unmotivated, as if restoring 100-year-old furniture wasn't real work unless I was wearing a tie while doing it. They painted her as a victim, said I'd become controlling when she started to succeed, that I weaponized the home by changing the deed, that I ambushed her with eviction paperwork as revenge for her career. I sat there, jaw tight, hands folded, while they made me out to be some bitter handyman who couldn't handle a woman with ambition. But I didn't flinch. Not once. Because I wasn't there to defend myself emotionally. I was there to win. And I'd come prepared. My attorney, Gwen, a no-nonsense woman in her early 50s with a voice like gravel and eyes that missed nothing, leaned in and whispered, "They're swinging hard early. Let them. We'll cut the legs out from under them and cross." She was right. We didn't need to fight fire with fire. We just had to let them burn out. Then Claudia's father took the stand. It was surreal watching him testify, the same man who barged into my house 2 months ago threatening to teach me a lesson. Now he was all solemn tone and selective memory. He claimed he co-signed on the original mortgage and had financial interests in the home. Claimed I only managed to buy the house because of family assistance and that Claudia had been the primary provider for the household. He nodded toward me like I was some freeloading roommate who got lucky. My blood boiled. But Gwen didn't blink. Just jotted a few notes and leaned back in her chair. The judge asked questions. Claudia's team slid documents across the bench. Expense breakdowns, vague records of lifestyle spending, all carefully curated to make it look like I was riding Claudia's coattails while she paid for everything. What they didn't know, or maybe thought I was too dumb to understand, was that I'd been keeping receipts of my own, literal and otherwise. When the judge asked if I had anything to say before we moved to financial disclosures, Gwen stood up and said, "Your Honor, we'd like to reserve our statements until we present our counter-evidence. But I'd ask that the court refrain from assuming financial dominance based on titles alone." The judge nodded. Understood. But on the surface, the plaintiff's argument presents a disparity of contribution. That will be a consideration if assets are to be divided. Gwen smiled politely. "We agree, Your Honor. Contribution should absolutely be considered." That was the moment I knew we were turning the tide. Not by shouting, not by accusing, but by letting Claudia underestimate me. She'd walked into court thinking she had the upper hand, the lawyers, the wardrobe, the polished story. But she didn't know about the paperwork I'd filed 6 months ago. She didn't know the business licenses, the client contracts, the silent investment partners I'd brought on to expand the shop. She didn't know I'd stopped being a one-man show, that I'd become something more. And she sure as hell didn't know what was coming next. When we broke for lunch, I stood to leave the courtroom, feeling her eyes on me as I walked past. She looked at my clothes, a clean button-up shirt with the logo from my shop embroidered over the chest, and smirked like I was still the same dusty craftsman she'd written off. But I didn't look at her. I just kept walking. Because when the truth comes, it doesn't need to shout. It just needs to show up. And I was just getting started. Court resumed at 1:15 sharp. Claudia returned to her seat with the same unbothered air she always carried, smooth, composed, eyes bored. She didn't glance at me, but I could feel the energy radiating off her, like she'd already made the call to her girlfriends to say it was all wrapped up. And then Gwen stood up. Calm. Straight-backed. Not a paper out of place. Your Honor, she said, at this time the defense would like to introduce additional financial disclosures, as well as testimony from a third-party witness. The judge nodded. Proceed. The door to the back of the courtroom opened, and in walked my old boss, Ray. Tall, salt and pepper hair, hands like anvils. He ran a high-end furniture restoration shop in Asheville for 30 years before retiring last winter. Claudia wouldn't have recognized him. She never cared enough to ask about the people in my trade. Ray took the stand and swore in. Gwen smiled. Mr. Thurmond, could you tell the court what your relationship is to my client? I used to be Dale's boss, he said in a slow southern drawl. Ran Thurmond and Company. Furniture restoration. Hired Dale straight out of school. Best craftsman I ever trained. Gwen nodded. And did anything change recently between you and Mr. Brower? Ray smiled faintly. Sure did. I sold him the company. Lock, stock, and contracts. Signed it over in full 8 months ago. Claudia's head jerked, just barely. Like she wasn't sure she'd heard right. Gwen turned toward the judge. We've submitted the sale documents, Your Honor, along with the business valuation, which as of last quarter sits at $1.2 million. The company currently holds exclusive restoration contracts with 4 luxury hotels and 1 private historical estate. Estimated growth, 15% per quarter. Now Claudia turned, looked straight at me for the first time since this whole circus began. I didn't move, didn't blink. Her lawyer fumbled for a response. Your Honor, the plaintiff was not made aware of this acquisition. Gwen was ready. Correct. Because Mr. Brower made the purchase using his own independent LLC, financed through personal assets and a private loan, both of which fall outside the marital estate due to timing and separation of accounts. All legal, all documented. Claudia's mouth opened slightly. No words came out. Gwen continued, completely unfazed. Additionally, Your Honor, we have submitted proof that Mr. Brower refinanced the marital home under his name alone 6 weeks prior to the eviction. This was done after Ms. Wallace voluntarily signed a quitclaim deed as part of a prior mortgage restructuring, also legally recorded. Therefore, the property in question is not community property, but a sole asset. The judge flipped through the packet of documents, eyebrows raised. All of this has been notarized and filed. Yes, Your Honor. With full transparency. Claudia's attorney stood, flustered. This is highly unusual. We were led to believe the defendant had minimal financial stake. That belief, Gwen interrupted, was based on assumption, not fact. A bead of silence stretched across the courtroom. Claudia looked stunned. Not angry, not embarrassed, just stunned. Like the floor had shifted under her and no one had warned her she was standing on a trapdoor. The judge turned to me. Mr. Brower, is it true you withheld this information during your marriage? I stood, my voice clear. No, Your Honor. I didn't hide anything. Claudia never asked. She was more interested in mocking my little workshop than understanding what it really was. Claudia let out a quiet, bitter laugh, the kind that used to make my skin crawl. So this is what you were doing? Playing silent partner while I was out building a real career. I finally looked at her. No, I was just working. You were the one playing. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering furiously. Claudia shook her head once, then twice, like she couldn't absorb what was happening. Because here's the thing about people like Claudia. They believe they always see the full board. They think everyone else is playing checkers while they're busy orchestrating chess. What she didn't know was that I'd been carving my own game behind closed doors. Quiet, patient, just like I restore wood, slow strokes, firm hands, no shortcuts. By the time Gwen wrapped up our case, the courtroom felt different. The smirks were gone. Claudia's side of the aisle was quiet. Her father, who'd been so vocal before, sat stiff and pale. When we stood for recess, Claudia didn't follow me out. She stayed seated, staring down at the table like she'd lost her footing. Gwen tapped me on the arm. Now we wait, she said. But I think the wind just shifted. I nodded. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't the one caught off guard. She was. And I intended to keep it that way. I didn't go looking for revenge. That's the thing some people don't understand. I didn't sit around scheming, rubbing my hands together like some movie villain. I just stopped protecting people who never gave a damn about protecting me. Once the courtroom shook off Claudia's version of the truth, once the financials came to light, the hidden business revealed, the quitclaim deed confirmed, the whole story started to collapse on her. And when it did, it wasn't just her marriage that broke apart. It was everything. The news spread faster than I expected. Claudia's firm, the same one she used to brag about over wine and tapas, the one where she said things like, "My team doesn't move without me," started getting wind of the trial. Someone from the legal department had apparently sat in the back of the courtroom during our second day of testimony. Quiet. Observing. I didn't find out until later, but they'd already been uncomfortable with her personal conduct, bleeding into the company image. The affair with Vincent wasn't exactly discreet. A few hotel receipts had even been run through the corporate card, despite her best efforts to shuffle the paperwork. When you spend enough time climbing ladders, you forget the people below you can still look up and take notes. Within 2 weeks of our last hearing, she was quietly removed from 3 key projects. Clients began requesting other managers. Then, one Thursday, my buddy Ryan sent me a photo. Claudia's nameplate was missing from her office door. That was how I found out she'd resigned, or been asked to resign, depending on who you talk to. As for Vincent, he pulled his best vanishing act. From what I could gather, someone, not me, but someone, had submitted an anonymous package to his firm's HR department. Copies of hotel invoices, screen grabs from Claudia's calendar, and a friendly reminder that their code of conduct included a policy on inappropriate workplace relationships. He was put on indefinite leave by the end of the month. Word was, he didn't bother showing up to the final meeting. Claudia reached out once, just once, in an email titled "For Closure." It was long, rambling, carefully worded like she was trying to thread the needle between apology and self-preservation. She said she never meant to hurt me, that things just spiraled, that maybe we both lost track of who we used to be. She even called me D, like she hadn't spent the last year pretending I was just some placeholder in her life. At the end, she asked if we could talk. Just one conversation. For peace, for understanding. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Instead, I went back to work. Business picked up fast after the trial. Word of mouth spread through the local design community. High-end clients who appreciated real work. People who didn't blink at 4-figure invoices for hand-laid banisters and French-polished bureaus. The story helped, sure. The quiet craftsman who turned out to be a business owner, who defended his name with calm professionalism while the polished executive's mask slipped. People liked that story. It made them curious, respectful. I opened a second location just outside of Boone 3 months later. Hired 2 apprentices, both of them young and sharp and hungry to learn. When the ribbon cutting happened, Trish was there, front row, smiling big, wearing the same leather boots I'd resold for her years ago. "You did good," she said. "About damn time the world figured it out." "You were right," I admitted. "About Claudia. About all of it." She didn't gloat, just patted my shoulder. "Some people want projects. Others want partners. You were always the second. She just didn't deserve it." We went out for drinks that night, just family, real family. People who'd never once asked me to change who I was. I don't think about Claudia much anymore. Not in the day-to-day. Sometimes she creeps in when I'm alone in the shop late at night, sanding down an old cabinet, breathing in the scent of wood shavings and lacquer. I think about how fast things can look perfect, how fast they can rot underneath. It's a lesson I already knew from furniture. I just hadn't applied it to people. Not until now. One morning, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I let it ring out, then checked the voicemail. It was Claudia's brother, the same guy who stood next to their dad when they tried to run me out of my own house. "Hey Dale," he said. "Just wanted to say, I didn't know everything. Guess I was wrong. Hope things are good. You deserve better than how we treated you." I didn't call him back either, but I saved the message. Not out of sentiment, just as proof. Proof that sometimes, people do see the truth, even if it's too damn late to matter. Now I get up every morning and do what I've always done, build things. Restore what's worth saving. Let go of what's not. My name's Dale. I'm a furniture restorer. I don't carry bitterness, but I never forget grain patterns. And I can always spot a veneer,